like about this place, I call this the land of milk and honey. You've got fresh water on one side, on the back of us, you've got the salt water down the other end.
I find the diversity and the freedom of living up here is wonderful.
It's bush, it's country, it gets a grip on you. It's beautiful.
This dry savanna country in North Queensland is probably some of the most biodiverse of all of Australia, really.
The country's really rich. There's a lot of diversity in terms of the types of plants and grasses and wildlife, and it's just a sense of things happening.
A melting pot of different faunas here. So that's the same with the birds, and birds being such mobile animals, we get lots of different birds coming through and living here.
Throughout the year, the seasons change, the wildlife change. When the water comes, everything turns green and all the wildlife are happy, and you feel like going about and jumping as well. So pretty much most of the landscape is grazed in one, well actually all of the landscape is grazed. You know, you either have, most people think of the cattle and that type of grazing, but you know, Australia's wildlife is a grazing based wildlife as well, with your kangaroos, etc. And the system needs to be chewed. You know, if the system doesn't get chewed, the system actually fails. It's a system that was adapted over millions of years to be eaten.
The grazing industry, to a great extent, was the growth, you know, that brought these towns out here, and they're still here today. I mean, I don't believe that tourism or, you know, those other industries can, you know, even get close to providing the money and the infrastructure we need, and that's going to come from the grazing industry.
The grazing industry across the north and the northwest is a multi-million dollar contributor.
You know, sort of places around 50 to 80,000 acres up to 1 million acres, and enterprises running from sort of 1,000, 2,000 breeders to you know, 15, 20, 30,000. So it's a fairly diverse scale of size, yeah.
Major money that comes into our towns and keeps us going all year round is the grazing industry, and the grazing industry hasn't been able to do that for the last 3 years, and at the moment it's getting worse and worse because people have had to sell off their cattle because of the drought, and at the moment there's no more coming in and there's no grass and the water is getting very low, so it's going to have an effect for quite some time to come yet.
Having to contend with 3 years of very little rainfall events over our what is a normal wet season has really compounded the issues, and along with that we're experiencing the side effects of the psychological challenges that are coming with the financial pressures.
You know, obviously, you know, affected by drought there, and it's certainly hard on people because the only money in cattle is in weight, and that's where you make your money, and when they haven't got any weight on them, you know, you just don't get the return. So dry years when cattle are light in condition, no money.
We live in a land of vast contrasts, and you know, we've experienced the fires in 2012, which is something that was unprecedented in this part of the world.
The fires were particularly bad because it was very dry at the time, but also there were very strong winds behind them. Although we do get fires most years, these were extremely hot and they burnt through the crowns of trees.
Well, we have a property of 200,000 acres and we lost 94% of that.
Then we had the floods of 2009, and then we had Cyclone Yassi in 2010, which had a lot of damage on the eastern side. Then we had the live export ban of 2011, which meant that a lot of cattle that had been bred and processed and ready for export had to stay in the landscape.
What we're seeing is land and livestock management practices being based on financial positions rather than good, sound, traditional land and livestock values. It's incumbent on the industry to be far more proactive than what we've done in the past.
We've fenced our soil types pretty well, and we rotational graze or rotational spell. We're getting more desirable species back into our pasture and more improved ground cover.
There are a lot of good land managers that have embraced the conservation side of land management and livestock entities as well.
We've spent a lot of money on water distribution. We've got it to the point now where our cattle only have to walk about 1.5 km to water. It's even the grazing pressure out a lot over the property.
It's not all about money. It's about being back on country and doing things, protecting our land.
It has what it needs to come back. Everything that's required, all of those things that are required by this industry to bounce back and be profitable again and continue to stand up these communities and this economy are still all there. So I believe that we just need obviously some rain. The prices on cattle are improving and the forecasts of those prices look good. In my opinion, the grazing industry is always going to be the solid foundation, the most sustainable, reliable, strong industry for this region.
We're thinking of our young ones. They're our future and we've got to put things in place now for them. And our culture and heritage will survive.
The landscape is ever changing. The wet seasons, you can't believe what it looks like after the wet. Sure, it's not very good right now. It's pretty bad. The country will recover. Providing there's enough people left viable enough to keep going, it'll be good.